Cute little boys. Steve and Dave were brothers who didn't always get along. Steve was 5 years old and Dave was 3. They lived with their parents in a small apartment in the busy downtown area of the city. Steve loved having a little brother, but sometimes he got annoyed with Dave. Since Steve was older, he thought he should get to decide what games they played or what TV shows they watched. He would grab toys out of Dave's hands saying, "I'm playing with that." At snack time or meal times, Steve would grab the biggest cookie or the juiciest apple, leaving Dave with whatever was left. Dave looked up to his big brother and wanted to do everything Steve did, but when Steve bossed him around or took away his toys, it made Dave sad and angry. The younger brother would yell "no fair" and try to hit or kick Steve. Their parents often had to step in and put the boys in separate rooms to calm down when they started fighting. One Saturday morning, the two brothers were arguing over what to eat for breakfast. Steve wanted waffles but Dave wanted pancakes. Neither brother would budge. "Waffles are better," yelled Steve. "No, pancakes," cried Dave. Their parents came into the kitchen to see what all the fuss was about. "Boys, there's no need to fight. We have both waffles and pancakes so you can each pick what you want," said Mom. But Steve and Dave were too upset to listen. Steve grabbed the plate of waffles and gobbled one down. "Ha! Now there's only enough for me," said Steve. This made Dave scream in frustration and stomp off to his room. Dad sat down with Steve and said, "Son, you can't just take everything you want without sharing with your brother. How would you feel if Dave did that to you?" Steve thought for a minute. He realized he would hate it if Dave never let him play with certain toys or made him eat food he didn't like. "I guess I didn't think about how Dave feels," said Steve. "Since I'm bigger and older, I thought I could be the boss of everything. But that's not fair, is it?" "No, that's not how brothers should treat each other," said Dad kindly. "Dave looks up to you, so you should set a good example. Brothers need to compromise, share, and respect each other." Steve nodded. He felt bad that he had been mean to Dave so many times. He decided he would try to be nicer from now on. Just then, Dave came back into the kitchen, sniffling from crying. "I'm sorry I got mad," said Steve. "Let's split the waffles and pancakes, so we both get some of each." Dave's face lit up in a smile. The brothers sat down together and enjoyed their breakfast. For the rest of the morning, Steve made an effort to share toys and take turns choosing games. He let Dave have first pick of snacks too. At first, Dave seemed surprised by Steve's new friendly behavior, but the little brother was quick to forgive. He was just happy to be included. The boys started having much more fun playing now that no one was yelling or fighting over toys. Over the next few weeks, Steve worked hard on controlling his bossy urges. Whenever he was tempted to grab something away from Dave, he stopped himself. Steve realized that giving up a little of what he wanted allowed Dave to be happier, and when his brother was happy, Steve found he was happier too. One afternoon, the boys headed to the neighborhood park to play. They ran around chasing each other, seeing who could swing the highest, and climbing up the jungle gym. When they got thirsty, they bought lemonade from the snack stand. Steve started to gulp his lemonade down but then saw Dave was still waiting patiently for his. "Here, you can have the first sip," said Steve, handing his brother the cup. "Thanks," said Dave, smiling. They passed the lemonade back and forth, sharing it until it was all gone. Later, the brothers decided to build a sandcastle in the playground sandbox. "Let's make the biggest, most awesome sandcastle ever," said Steve. "Yeah," cheered Dave. The boys gathered buckets and shovels and got to work. Steve constructed tall towers and dug a deep moat. Dave carefully sculpted windows, doors, and even a drawbridge. Everyone at the park was impressed by the brothers' teamwork on such an elaborate sandcastle. Proud of their accomplishment, Steve said, "This is the best sandcastle." "We make a great team, don't we?" "We sure do," agreed Dave. The boys exchanged a high five. As the sun started to set, it was time to head home for dinner. Steve carried the buckets while Dave carefully held the shovels. When they got home, their parents were astonished to see the brothers laughing and chatting together. "Well, you two seem like you had a fun day at the park," said Mom. "We built an awesome sandcastle," said Steve. "I dug the moat," then Dave did the cool details. "Yup, we make a good team," added Dave. Dad ruffled both boys' hair affectionately. "I'm so glad to see you sharing and getting along. That's what being good brothers is all about." At dinner time, Steve let Dave pick which drink he wanted first, and when they served up dessert, Steve split the chocolate chip cookies evenly, making sure Dave got his fair share. That night at bedtime, as the brothers lay tucked under their covers, Steve said, "I'm sorry I used to be so mean and bossy. From now on, let's try to share toys and take turns choosing games. Deal?" "Deal," said Dave happily. Dave reached his hand out, and Steve shook it. Then the older brother leaned over to give Dave a goodnight hug. As the weeks went by, Steve and Dave fell into a new routine of compromise and sharing. Of course, they still had the occasional quarrel, as all siblings do, but they tried to talk it through instead of screaming or getting physical. Steve took his role as big brother seriously. He helped Dave learn to ride a bike, stood up for him if other kids were being mean, and made sure to include Dave when playing with friends. And Dave was a thoughtful little brother. He waited patiently for his turn, shared his favorite toys with Steve, and drew his brother pictures just to show he cared. At the end of the day, the brothers knew they always had each other. Being best friends as well as siblings made everything more fun, whether it was building sandcastles in the park, picking movies to watch on family movie night, or sneaking extra cookies after dinner. Steve and Dave did everything together. Through ups and downs, the bond between the brothers continued to grow. Their household became a happier place where laughter and joy replaced yelling and fights. Steve and Dave learned the valuable lesson that brothers should share and compromise to create a loving, respectful relationship.